My name is Sydney, and I'm 29 years old. I don't usually share my personal stories publicly, but this one deserves to be told. It's not just a story about family or money or betrayal. It's about silence, the kind that looks weak at first but becomes your greatest weapon. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, and share this story with someone who's ever been underestimated. Trust me, by the end, you'll understand why silence can be louder than revenge. It started at a dinner I didn't even want to attend. The annual family dinner at our old house had always been a stage for my parents and older brother, Ethan, to flaunt their achievements. For them, family wasn't about connection. It was a scoreboard. Ethan was the golden child. Married young, bought a house at 25, had a corporate job with a fancy title. I, on the other hand, was the dreamer, the one who left her job to start a design studio that barely made enough to pay rent. The truth, I wasn't poor. I was just building, and building takes time. But to them, patience looked like failure. When I arrived that night, the atmosphere was already thick with judgment. The dining table gleamed with silver cutlery and fine china, my mother's proud collection. My father poured wine. Ethan laughed too loud, and his wife, Julia, wore the polite smile that never reached her eyes. "Ah, look who's here," my mother said as I walked in. Miss Entrepreneur herself. Her tone was sweet, but her words carried thorns. "Hi, Mom," I said, forcing a smile. Ethan leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Still renting that tiny apartment downtown?" "Yes," I replied calmly. For now." "For now," he repeated, mockingly, looking at Julia. "You said that 2 years ago." Julia giggled softly, hiding it behind her glass. My father joined in, chuckling. "Some people just aren't cut out for responsibility, Ethan. You, on the other hand, you've always had that drive." He patted Ethan's shoulder proudly. I cut a piece of steak and chewed slowly. I'd learned long ago that nothing irritated them more than when I refused to defend myself. Ethan smirked again. "You'll never have a house like mine, Seed. Some people just don't have the luck for it." My parents laughed. My mother raised her glass and said, "Pour all your life." That one stung, not because it was true, but because it came from her. I looked at each of them slowly, then smiled, a calm, quiet smile. That made them shift, uncomfortably in their seats. "Maybe," I said softly, "maybe not." The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of condescension and laughter at my expense, but I said nothing. When I left that night, my mother kissed me on the cheek as if nothing had happened. Ethan called out from the porch, "Don't forget to pay rent on time." I didn't answer. I just walked to my car and drove away, heart pounding, not from anger, but from something sharper, resolve. The next morning, I woke up with a headache from replaying the night before. But by noon, I had already decided what I was going to do. For months, I'd been sitting on something, an opportunity that scared me, a property renovation partnership. My mentor, Marcus, had been urging me to invest in a small, run-down duplex in the city's old district. It was risky, yes, but if done right, the profit margin was huge. That morning, I called him. "Marcus, I'm in." "You're sure?" he asked. "That's all your savings, I'm sure." He was silent for a moment. "You've got guts, Sydney. Let's make it happen." The following weeks were chaos. Dust, noise, late nights with blueprints and paint samples. But for the first time in years, I felt alive. I wasn't chasing validation anymore. I was chasing results. I worked harder than I ever had. I slept on site some nights, ate takeout, and watched the place transform piece by piece. Then came the open house. I'll never forget the moment a young couple walked in, fell in love with the space, and offered above the asking price. The deal closed in less than 2 weeks. When I saw the final balance in my account, I sat in silence for a long time, staring at the screen. Then I smiled the same calm smile I had worn that night at dinner. Exactly 1 month had passed since my brother told me I'd be poor all my life. That afternoon, my phone rang. First, it was my mother. Then my brother, both missed calls. Finally, I picked up when my father called. "Hello, Dad," I said. "Your brother said you bought a property. Is that true?" "I didn't buy it," I said. Sipping my coffee, "I sold it." "Sold it? You had a property to sell?" he asked, clearly confused. "Yes, a duplex. Fully renovated." There was a pause. Then how much did you make? I smiled to myself. Enough to buy my own house, maybe even one nicer than Ethan's. Silence. Who said I'll be poor all my life? I added softly. The silence on the phone that day was everything I needed. My father didn't say a word for several seconds, then cleared his throat. "Well," he said finally, "good for you," but the tone said otherwise. He wasn't congratulating me. He was processing the shock, the realization that the daughter they once dismissed had done something they couldn't ignore. Later that evening, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from my mother. "Your brother told us about your sale. We're glad things are finally working out for you." No emojis, no warmth, just that flat, emotionless politeness she used when she didn't know how to react. And then from Ethan, "So you flipped a house, big deal. Let's see if you can keep it up." I didn't reply, because honestly I didn't need to. Over the next few weeks, I bought my first home. A quiet, modern 2-story house with big windows and a small garden. Nothing extravagant, but it was mine. Every tile, every light fixture, every nail was a piece of my comeback. When I moved in, Marcus came over with a bottle of champagne. "To freedom," he said, handing me a glass. I laughed, to silence. The best revenge there is. He grinned. "You know, when I met you, you were so timid. You second-guessed everything." What changed? I thought about that dinner table. The laughter, the sneers, the way they looked at me like I'd failed at life. I got tired, I said simply. Tired of being the punchline in my own story. A few weeks later, the universe decided to test my calm. It was a Sunday morning. I was watering the plants when my phone rang. It was my brother, Ethan. "Hey," I said cautiously. He didn't even say hello. "You think you're better than everyone now?" I frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I heard from Dad that you bought a new house." "Must be nice. All this success all of a sudden. I worked for it, Ethan." "Oh, please," he snapped. "Don't act like flipping one property makes you some kind of millionaire. I've been in corporate for 8 years. You think you can just skip ahead because you got lucky once?" "Ethan, Mom and Dad said you're acting arrogant. You didn't even invite us to see your new place." I laughed softly. "Ethan, you didn't invite me to your wedding." He went silent for a beat. Then, "That's different." "Is it?" he scoffed. "Whatever. Just don't forget where you came from." And before I could respond, he hung up. I stood there for a moment, staring at my reflection in the window. Calm face, eyes slightly tired but content. 4 years, they defined me by lack. Now that I had something of my own, they couldn't stand it, but that was just the beginning. Because 2 days later, my mother called again. This time, not to talk, but to ask for something. "Sydney," she said sweetly, "your father and I were thinking, maybe you could help Ethan out. He's having some trouble at work." I froze. "Help him? How?" "Well," she hesitated. "He's been wanting to invest in a side business, something real estate related. You've done so well lately. Maybe you could guide him, or even partner up." I almost laughed. "You mean the same Ethan who told me I'd be poor all my life?" "Sydney," she said sharply, "don't be petty." "I'm not being petty," I said quietly. "I'm just remembering." That conversation lit something in me. Not anger, but clarity. They only respected success when it wore the right face. They loved control more than love itself. And now I had something they couldn't control. Independence. I decided to play along. Just a little. The next week I invited them over for dinner, in my house. When they arrived, my parents looked around, clearly surprised. The place was warm, bright, tastefully decorated, nothing flashy, but every detail screamed earned. "This is nice," my mother said, scanning the marble countertops. You did all this yourself. With a little help, I said casually. Ethan arrived a few minutes later, wearing that same smug grin, though I could see the flicker of unease behind it. He whistled. So this is what flipping houses gets you, huh? Not bad. Not bad at all, I said, smiling. Would you like the tour? He nodded, pretending not to be impressed. But I saw it, the envy. The kind he tried to hide behind sarcasm. When we returned to the dining table, my father raised a glass. We're proud of you, Sydney, he said. I smiled, though I knew what was coming next. He continued. We were also wondering if you might give your brother a few tips. He's thinking of investing, but we don't want him to lose money. I looked at Ethan, who was pretending to be indifferent but clearly waiting. Sure, I said slowly. I'll help. My mother's face lit up. That's wonderful. But on one condition, I added. They all turned toward me. What condition? My father asked. I leaned back and said calmly. He listens. Ethan laughed. Excuse me. You heard me, I said. If I'm going to guide you, you follow my lead. No arrogance. No, I know better. Otherwise, I'm out. My mother frowned. That's not very respectful, Sydney. I turned to her, meeting her gaze. Neither was telling your daughter she'd be poor all her life. The table went silent. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the ticking of the clock on the wall. Then my father cleared his throat. Let's eat. After they left that night, I sat on my couch, wine glass in hand, thinking. I wasn't trying to humiliate them. I just wanted them to understand. I wasn't the same Sydney anymore. But what came next? That wasn't my plan. Ethan didn't want guidance. He wanted shortcuts. And when his greed got the better of him, he dragged me into something that would explode bigger than either of us expected. Because when he tried to use my name, my business, for his own gain, I had no choice but to show him what real consequences look like. A few weeks passed after that family dinner. Things were quiet, too quiet. Ethan hadn't reached out since, and I honestly didn't mind. But one Monday morning, I opened my email and froze. It was a notification from a property agency, the same one I used for my renovation business, thanking me for registering a new project under Sydney and Company Development, except I hadn't. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But then I saw the contact details listed on the registration. Ethan Coleman, managing partner. My brother, he'd used my business name, my reputation. And worse, the document was tied to a small warehouse property on the east side, a half-demolished mess in a bad part of town. I stared at the screen, disbelief tightening into anger. He didn't even ask. Marcus, my mentor, called an hour later. Hey, Seed, I just saw your new project filing. Are you expanding that fast? My chest went cold. That's not me, Marcus. He went silent. Then someone's pretending to be you. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. I think it's my brother. Marcus exhaled sharply. You need to shut it down. Fast. By that afternoon, I'd spoken with my lawyer and sent an official notice to the property agency. They froze the listing immediately, but damage had already been done. Ethan had been calling investors, using my name as his guarantee. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from him. You could have just helped me like Mom asked. Now you're making a scene. I stared at my screen in disbelief. He wasn't sorry. He was angry at me for catching him. Me, you used my business name without permission. Ethan, you're my sister. Family helps family. Me, family doesn't commit fraud. Ethan, it's not fraud. It's business. You'll thank me when we make money. I didn't respond again. There was no point. Instead, I made another call, this time to the property investors he'd approached. One of them, a calm, older man named Mr. Alvarez, told me. He said you were the lead designer, that your company had already handled 5 successful renovations. I was about to sign the deposit. Please don't, I said quickly. I have nothing to do with that deal. Mr. Alvarez sighed. Then you just saved me a lot of money, Ms. Coleman. He paused. You know, integrity's rare in business. I'll remember this. And he did. 2 days later, my parents showed up at my house, unannounced. My mother's expression was tight, lips pressed together. What did you do to your brother? I blinked. Excuse me, Ethan said you're trying to destroy his career. She snapped. Destroy his career. I repeated. He used my company's name to scam investors. He said it was a misunderstanding. My father cut in. You could have handled it privately, like when you handled humiliating me at dinner privately. I asked, my voice calm but firm. My mother sighed, exasperated. Sydney, you're so dramatic. It was just a small mistake. Why make a scene? I stood there, stunned. For years, I'd been their scapegoat, the family disappointment, and even now when their perfect son had clearly crossed the line, they refused to see it. Then something in me shifted. I'm done being quiet, I said. My mother frowned. What does that mean? You'll see. The following week, the property investors, thanks to the lawyer I'd hired, received a full report with every email Ethan had sent using my name. I didn't embellish. I didn't accuse. I simply presented the facts. The investors withdrew immediately. The agency blacklisted him. Within days, my brother's project fell apart. Ethan called me. Furious. You think you won? You embarrassed me. No, I said softly, you embarrassed yourself. I just didn't cover it up this time. He didn't speak for a long time. Then, voice low and venomous, he said, you'll regret this. I smiled faintly. Maybe, but at least I'll sleep. My parents didn't speak to me for nearly 2 months after that, and for a while, I thought. Maybe I'd lost my family for good. But during that silence, something unexpected happened. My business exploded. Word spread fast about how I'd handled the situation, calmly, with integrity. The investors I'd warned, they recommended me to others. I landed 2 major renovation contracts within the month. When you stay quiet long enough, people mistake it for weakness. But when you finally speak, with proof, with truth, your voice carries weight. 3 months later, I got another call. My father, your mother's in the hospital, he said. She had a mild stroke. My heart dropped. No matter what had happened, she was still my mother. I rushed over that night. Ethan was already there, sitting by her bedside. He didn't look up. When I walked in, for a long time, none of us spoke. The machines beeped softly around us. My mother slept, her hand pale and still. Then Ethan finally said, I shouldn't have used your name. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was a start. I nodded. I know. He looked at me, eyes tired. I thought if I just proved myself like you did, maybe they'd see me again. I blinked. I'd never thought of it that way. Ethan wasn't just arrogant. He was desperate. The golden child, crumbling under his own image. I don't hate you, I said. Quietly. I just want peace. He swallowed hard, then nodded. Me too. When my mother woke the next morning, she squeezed my hand weakly. You're here, she whispered. I'm here, Mom, I said. Her eyes filled with tears. I said terrible things. Yeah, I said, smiling faintly. You did. She chuckled softly, then whispered, but you proved me wrong. I brushed her hair back and said, that's all I ever wanted. Weeks later, we had dinner together again. This time, quietly, no competition, no bragging. Just family trying to rebuild. And when Ethan raised his glass to me and said, to Sydney, for showing us what real success looks like, I didn't gloat, I just smiled. The same quiet smile I had the night they called me poor. Because now, they finally understood, it was never about money. It was about respect. Transcribed by Turbo Scribe. AI. Go unlimited to remove this message.